Where are you?
I'm in Dubai.
Dubai. Okay.
In Dubai. Yeah.
Hmm.
So thank you for. I'll start my presentation. I think you see it now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my presentation is about information about information. Well, why information about information? Of course, feedback is information. And first observation that I can do now is that democracy is dead. It is a non-viable system. My and I cannot I base this on historical fact and of course on the observations of today's society. So for my PhD, which I'm currently trying to do, I am testing the natural and physical criteria of and for non-harmful functionality of man-made systems. Now, democracy is not functioning very well because there's always a chance of having a minority overruled by a majority. Democracy, and the more votes you get, but not all that information that is then uh, available is being used or is unable to be used, which therefore makes the functionality in jeopardy. So information is the basic necessity, physical, biological, and sociological for functionality, I find. I'll move on, yeah?
Yeah.
So I did a lot of research the last few years, and I spoke to people in physics, and information is now seen as the fifth state of matter, next to solid, next to plasma, next to gas, and next to liquid. Yeah. So what does it mean that information is fundamental? So the cyberneticians are right that feedback is fundamental to navigate reality, navigate systems towards a teleological goal or teleologically, organized systems have information or need information to reach their goals of sustainability, non-harmful functionality. I quote now because I'm not using sustainability anymore. I just say sustainability is the wrong definition, really, and we have to now use non-harmful functionality. That's my, idea in my research. So every elementary particle in the universe carries information about itself in itself. This is a physical discovery. So information is fundamental in every elementary particle. Then the matter-energy information equivalence is also being proven. So Landauer was right when he said information is physical. That's now being proven physically in physics. And we have, of course, to do with the first and second law of thermodynamics. First law, energy cannot be destroyed or created. And the other one, the second one, is that systems tend to maximum entropy, with meaning maximum disorder or maybe non-functionality. But what is striking in my research is that metabolism and cognition, which is the processing of information, as somehow halts the entropy, halts the tendency to disorder in the natural systems. Yeah, follow me? Good. So what I've tried to do is to make equations, and it was good that Robin talked about metaphysics, right, Robin? Metaphysical equations with meaning. So what we call them semiotics, semiotical metaphysical equations. And I'll show that in the next slide, but I just wanted to show here that the conclusion of our research is that information deficit, if there is any deficit in any system, it will distort the semantic meaning. And it dissipates the physical energy required for optimal performance and functionality of all living systems. That's all man-made systems, natural systems, biological systems. So if you want to use disinformation or lying or propaganda to get something undeserved, that consumes the energy which would have been needed to enforce the undeserved. So if we enforce something by wrong information, by false information, and so on, we always accelerate the natural, social, in this case, entropy disorder. And I have created these two equations. You see, it all depends on the perception of reality. How we perceive reality is fundamental. And of course, we don't know everything, we cannot know everything, but we have to see, for example, like Nicholas Luhmann, that we have to agree on a certain system of reality by which nobody gets harmed, nothing gets harmed, right? And that cannot be done by democracy. So if we have a false perception, you read the line, please, with me. I'm using the ankh, that's a symbol for life, living systems. And then if we have not enough information, which is the equivalent for energy, we're going beyond this reality, or I call it realiteit, meaning the limitation of reality. We always end up in the delta S, social entropy or disorder. But if we try to have maximum of correct perception, then we can, plus information is the energy, so we have enough energy. We can then create a system that is non-harmful, and maximum performance for probability patterns will arrive, and then ending in social negentropy, social order. I could not get a mathematician to create these equations, so I kept them in semiotic metaphysical equations because they are now useful to apply to everything we create, we build, we make. As long as we have a certain criteria that I make a decision, or we will not harm something, we will not harm some kind of an agreement of non-harmful functionality for everything we build, run, operate. So notitia is the first element. I think it's notitia. So in place for a democracy, we have to create a noticracy based upon notitia, which is the Latin word for information. Government by information can then navigate every complex system. Slava and Robin, there's a lot of ways how to describe society, but it becomes too complex to control it any longer. And we cannot describe everything. So the simplest solution is to create a noticracy where all information is always optimized. All questions are asked, like von Forrester, he says, maximize always the number of questions, you get maximize the number of answers, right? So if you have three criteria only as the goal for government, non-harmful life, well-being, the environment, and social cohesion, and you base all your policies towards those three goals. So you will not harm those three main purposes. Then you may have a functional government, a noticracy, based upon the reality of cognition, processes of information, about not, because, for example, if we are censoring information by propaganda and so on, which means that the energy to achieve a goal because we are using propaganda or we are lying can never be achieved. So ideologies, therefore, can never be achieved because they just lack the information and therefore the energy. So we have to be really pragmatic in this case. Pragmatism is key. And if I am an academic and I go to the general public to say I'm talking about cybernetics, nobody will understand me, right? Very few. If I talk to the politicians in my street or in my village, in my town, I live in Switzerland, they don't understand me either because they all have an agenda. They don't want to listen. So they will not listen to information. That's just key. Therefore, democracy cannot work. We have a little chance to create noticracies based upon the three levels of science, biology, physics, and sociology. These all work like feedback mechanisms, cybernetical systems, according to Bates and everybody, right? And therefore, I suggest also that the table of elements in this picture will have an extra element I call notitia, NO, because information is part of every particle about itself in itself, right? So if we look at the science behind this, for example, quantum physics, cybernetics, information theory, Shannon, and so on, I think this makes sense. It is logical, it's applicable, it is useful, and we just have to inform the people about information. And that's why I wrote this book, The Brussels Lobby, the first cybernetical thriller. You can all read, because now it's a real life story about lobbyists against the necessary energy transitions we all facing because of the vested interests. So, but the group of thinkers in Brussels go against the politicians in Brussels that prevent the normal transition and also the sustenance of social cohesion. So that's why I wrote this book. It just came out 2 weeks ago. So have a look. And this is my talk, really. So information is fundamental. Everything that lacks information enters into entropy, disorder, non-controllability, and non-viability. So key is always to maximize all the information we can do, optimize it, ask all the questions, and allow information. The tendency to now to cut down on or to organize all these misinformation agencies like ETMO in Europe, other non-democratic elected people that are checking your emails, checking your information, and to regard them as disinformation because they go against the global policies. This is, of course, only contributing to more social entropy. So we are really running into social entropy because the basic needs for life in the planet are no longer supporting it. Thank you.
So this is the information theory version 2.
Right. This is
version,
really
or version 3 or 4, if you count cybernetics in between.
Yeah, this is cutting edge physics cybernetics.
And just a point of clarification, I missed the slide just before the mathematical equation of Ankh. Do you mind showing me again?
This one?
Yeah. Thank you.
So these are just two conclusions that I wrote,
Mhm.
So information, it's like the information deficit paradox is that you want to have go for a goal that is only achievable when the information is suppressed by lying or whatever.
Yeah.
Because of the equivalence information energy, that goal will never have enough energy to be reached. So that's the information deficit paradox.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can really see that in social systems everywhere.
Yeah, because it's the decontextualization that takes the life out of it.
So because it takes action, right? Already using the energy that's not available anymore.
And it's not in service of life anymore.
Because entropy is the information we don't have, which is the energy we don't have.
And in fact, you're
I don't get that yet, but
okay. So entropy, disorder, physical entropy, thermodynamic entropy, and social entropy are equivalent. So when we take out the information, we take out the energy to reach a certain goal. Therefore, these goals are unachievable. So it already uses up the energy needed to get to a goal when the energy is needed in the action of lying or disinformation.
Yeah, but so if the order though is a hidden order, or we talk about chaos, could be a hidden order.
Yeah, well,
and we don't have. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so no, I think the planetary system is in order. We are in a pocket of life.
Mm-hmm.
Like even Norbert Wiener writes that we are in a pocket, an enclave where life sustains itself.
Yeah.
But we are disturbing it by the information shortage.
Yeah, and back to Slava's first question before he presented of the tools of perception. We are mind and consciousness in this dialogue. So the system one is dependent on this bridge of, mind and consciousness.
So that's the false perception I start with, right? The equations start with the false perception.
It seems to me you're saying much the same thing that I would say from a slightly different perspective, that what's been happening is that in terms of the cybernetics, the variety of states that are available to say human systems in our world has been increasing well beyond our ability to control that variety. So our present governmental systems don't dispose enough potential command, variety of potential command to produce order in and match. And this is Ashby's law of requisite variety. That they don't, you can't. Our present governmental systems can't match the variety which are now producing within human systems.
Exactly, Robert, and that's true. But what I've done is I checked for my research all the global risks reported by the World Economic Forum. There's like 39 of them.
Yeah.
So conflict, economic strife, poverty, whatever. 88% of them, I did the math. 88% of them are all caused by the same cause, which is an information deficit.
Yeah.
Because the information to mitigate them, to stop them, is there, but we're not politically nor motivated nor aware how to do it.
Well, yes, and that's exactly right. And I would argue that the reason being that our governmental systems are not sophisticated enough in order to control that variety. That's a real problem. So if you were talking about democracy as it exists now, which is not my real understanding of democracy, because I think democracy is a system of government in which every person on the planet can contribute, and we're nowhere near that.
Yeah, but it's not very pragmatic, is it? Because you need to make decisions. You need to make decisions, and that's why I said I have to make decisions. Governmental decisions that do not harm things. Life, well-being, environment, social cohesion. The three of them, very simple, because I need to make it simpler. Right?
But it depends on the context of the decision. Yes.
Sure. And then we have to deal with ethical and unethical people, right?
Yeah.
But from a mathematical or metaphysical point of perspective, Robin, I think that your two presentations reside in the difference between the negative sign in his proposition. So the negative sign, if you put that to variety, then the genesis of variety can be either of the form of negativity or positivity, depending on its influence on the environment.
Yeah.
So he's defining what you should not do. Well, your VSM sorts of models attempt to define what should be done. And so I think a narrative about narrative about narratives.
Jerry, I'm a pragmatic man. I'm a businessman. I say, I have to make decisions. So I say the decisions are generally in not harmful to anything. I try, right? Yeah. So if we just make people aware of that, we should not harm these three main goals. Then we would be far further on than now, because now, in the last few months, if social entropy in Ukraine, in Israel, even democracy, more people saying this is true, and then there's always one person who can veto that, for example, right? So it doesn't really work, is it? Because the veto right is not democracy. Democracy is tyranny, isn't it?
Yes,
But the second part, I really would like to read your book. Where is it available from?
Oh, everywhere, in Amazon, in Barnes and Nobles, everywhere.
Okay.
I was also going to say that if people want to know the full story of mine, then that's available in my book, which you can get from Amazon.
Yeah, sure, but just exchange these information with us, I think.
Yeah, please send these book links and your slides to me so I can
Yeah,
share.
yeah, I will, Jason. Yeah, I just
But
made
I have a question, Aaron.
Arend, one more question.
Yeah,
What
go
do you think about quantum mechanics in the context of your model? I mean the uncertainty principle, which describes a relation between momentum and space and energy and time. What is the sense of the time in our practical life? We should be just in time for coordination and for supporting the sustainable development of the system, and maybe it is needed to consider energy, time, and information, because information is needed to be just in time.
Yeah, I know.
My question is related with the Slavas. But my question is, are you consider the information the same as subjective or objective?
Oh, so two questions. First, the quantum and time, the arrow of time. I think, Slava, that we are bound for a disaster. There is not enough energy in the system any longer to support it. So just, I always say, buckle up, and fasten your seatbelts, right? Because it is the way it is, really. Reality, if I look at reality and the limits of reality, we have already trespassed the limits of reality for years and years. And we are destroying the environment, we are destroying the fundaments and the criteria that support life everywhere. So I'm not looking very, very favorable. On the other hand, the question about, what did you say again? Sorry, I know I'll get lost.
Subjective or objective?
Yeah. No, subjectivity, objectivity. Of course, maximalization of information is both, right? So I'm an observer in the quantum world. I have influence over the outcome of the reality, right? Because my observation, makes the particle world into a wave or a particle, right? That part is also a basis for my research, because now we can corroborate how quantum physics work through the bits and bytes of information, within these particles to create systemic basis, molecules, order, biological system, and so on. So from this information, it becomes into matter, and matter becomes into life, and so on. And this is how I think, reality started and still continues. So reality will not stop continuing because we are there, or we are not there anymore. It will continue. However, we as a people would have the subjectivity and the objective responsibility to learn that this information that we have also needs to be used in order to, cybernetically navigate like the ship, right?
In quantum mechanics, receiving information is always action. So information is both objective and subjective.
Yeah, I mean, information is what we perceive. It's everything, you know, as like William Blake said, you know, the door, we are the door of perception, right? And then he says, if we open the door of perception and we would see reality as it is, we say it will be infinite. This is how we approximately said. So William Blake was already in the 18th century, 19th century, already, you know, a visionary. And he was right, because when we observe reality and we accept reality as it comes to us, which we don't, because we want to earn the undeserved. We want to gain. And we say in social independence theory by Johnson, he says, we only can gain something if the others can't at this moment, right? This is competition, which is then out of the reign of symbiosis, because symbiosis is also a confirmation that information is key to cooperation and then for survival. So I'm basing my research on what?
I mean, it's not an either or, it's both.
Right, both. So I base my research on physics, on biology, and especially symbiosis, and on sociology. So three pillars that all work, all life, all these systems, the three pillars of these systems all work in the same way, which is cybernetical feedback. They're all feedback mechanisms like Bateson. So the cybernetics is correct. But now we have to bring it to the general public, to the, you know, to the politicians, to the businessmen.
So I would interject here some, because it goes back to the question of objectivity and subjectivity, as well as to your equation. And that your equations really, really stimulate my imagination because they are highly original. And I think I guess I would say a profound synthesis of your philosophical and metaphysical views, which, well, I appreciate the semiosis. If I put it in terms of Charles Saunders Peirce, I'm not so certain I can put it into the language of Blake. And so that part of it is a bit more difficult. But the synthesis that you've accomplished is truly remarkable from its sense of originality. I won't comment on its validity, but I'll say from its originality, I absolutely am intrigued by it.
Thank you. I think it's practical, because, you know, I train people. I'm an oil and gas man. I train people worldwide. That's why I'm in Dubai now. But I already use this symbol. I use these equations already, because we can improve performance in health and safety. We can improve operational excellence, because the outcome is maximizing probability of performance, you see. And this is all applicable to every man-made system, and every anthropogenic system thrives through information. Because if I say to my students, you know, if you do a job and you don't have enough information, can you do the job? They say no, right? I can't do the job because I don't have enough information. Well, this applies to every system we build. We cannot fly to the moon without when we negate information that we should have seen before, you know, and we cannot sail a ship. We cannot, you know, pump oil in my field without information.
Okay, I would just add for your own information that in 1981 or two, something where a group of us who were interested in risk analysis got together and formed the Society for Risk Analysis. And I was one of the founding members of that society. And so the mathematical models that are being used in risk analysis really go back to fairly simple equations like those you derived or you imagine yourself. And I really appreciate now even further what you've done, because you have baked into your background thinking the basic human activities that are necessary to provide us with security or some sense of that. And so, yeah, very nice.
So it's energy. It's all about energy, really. You know, if I have to use energy for suppressing information, I lose that energy. It's like this law of energy dissipation, right? Prigogine, you know, these researchers in the last 100 years ago, they all confirm that energy dissipation occurs, you know, in using information that is too much information that is used or wasted, really. You know, we waste information by trying to control a system that is uncontrollable. It's too complex, right? The only way you can control it is not by controlling it, but by steering it, navigating it with information. And this is how you get VSM. And then you can also get enough requisite variety to absorb the variety, Robin, right?
Yeah.
So if we teach this to the governments and say, listen, the goals you have, ideological goals, are never going to be achieved because it lacks the information, which is energy. That's all we have to tell them.
A comment for you, sir. Do you know Mary Parker Follett's writing on government?
I've heard it referenced, yes.
Because
In terms
that's
of a
one of the
holistic-
best,
yeah.
one of the best pieces of writing that I've seen that sort of, if you like, I like kind of thing. It supports the way I'm approaching things.
Yeah, put something in the chat for me for a link because so why I work with kids is like I'm tired of the downstream effects of you know trying to bandage the system. So children are born with that knowing of the you know like we drown out the ability for them to sense the systems that they are through schooling and through you know
Yeah.
generational trauma that hasn't been digested. So what strikes me, you know, it's so funny because I woke up in the middle of the night with this like law of requisite variety, and here it is today, right? So, I'm also curious, Arend, about this term I heard, and I can't remember it, but in sailing, slip track navigation or something like that. So, like the least amount of structure necessary, then getting more information. So do you know what I mean by that?
Is that the navigation strip slip? I don't know that word actually, because I've been sailing myself, you know, on tankers before, a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know that one.
Well, I love the metaphor of the sea because what's calling me is developing oceans literacy for children in terms of, of understanding the complexity, because where I'm being led in my own meditation and guidance, I guide some meditation is to the deep dark, the mystery. And so what we lack in current.
Larry, before you leave, let's hear what you are having in your mind.
Yeah. Okay, let me just finish my sentence, Jason, is that we are not capable of recognizing endings. We're attached to wanting to live forever, and we don't have the language of grief. And now we're in this time of transition that's calling us to be able to digest this loss and not be hung on to trying to control everything. So that's my thanks.
But you see now, what happens now, of course, in geopolitics, that people they know that there is not enough energy to hang on to it, so it's always being enforced. You know, so the relation between the lack of information, the information deficit disorder, always comes into enforcement of those people who want to enforce that system at the cost of. So it's going to be a negative interdependent system at the cost of collateral damage and externalities, right?
Goes back to power and leadership.
And this is what we have to stop, and we can stop this if we prove this this metaphysical equation. If we prove them or demonstrate them, then the awareness of it would possibly prevent further ideological goal to being enforced, and that is hopefully my dream, my aim.
Larry, tell us what's in your mind before you leave.
You know, first, thank you to all the speakers and to everyone for your discussion here. The only thing that's on my mind is the difficulties that we get into when we talk about these very complex things, difficulties with language. And so just as an example, the word information, I mean, it's a word that's used every day, you know, all the time. You know, I can pick up a newspaper any day and it's probably going to be in there at least 4 or 5 times someplace. even within the systems and cybernetic community, the word's used differently in different contexts. So, trying to be clear about what we're talking about when you use the word information, I think is important. The other example is that when we use the words objectivity and subjectivity, I think these are, I think this is I don't know, the wrong question or whatever. I mean, if you ask me personally, I'd say my preference would be to say objectivity in parentheses or something like that. Even the term intersubjectivity isn't, satisfactory to me. So I'm not sure what that adds to the discussion. Everything is subjective. We always act as though it's objective, and that's it. So those are the things on my mind is matters of the use of certain types of words and language.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the quantum physics or the quantum reality will delete the objectivity and subjectivity, right?
Yeah.
Well,
So we're already beyond that.
Yep.
I think it was one very famous French physicist who said that quantum theory is in fact a process theory and not an objective theory at all.
Well, it's just we are perceivers and observers, right?
Yeah.
But there's
and the first thing we get into our minds is information. So information, therefore, is fundamental.
But here's the problem with that line of argumentations, and that is that yes, you can have a subject, but for a subject to have any meaning, you must put it into a sentence and make it have a predicate associated with it. And so that question that Jason asked is really a grammatical question about the relationship between the subject and the predicate, and those must be coupled together with a copula. And that's a grammatical issue, not a logical issue.
Well, information theory is also linked to grammar, right? If you read the book Grammatical Man in 1982, it's very important about information theory and grammar and the Shannon meaning of information in bits and bytes. How you call it, the redundancy of information and so on. Make it redundant and make redundancy to have less space in computer science or computer storage, but still convey the meaning of the message, right? That kind of information is also applicable to the research I'm doing.
Well, first of all, I have 2 cats and their names are Bits and Bytes, to give you an idea of what I think about information theory. Okay.
How many bytes in a bit?
No, they're 1 each. One
Okay.
bit. There are 2 cats.
That was just a
black
question.
and white.
So there's
2
8
cats
bytes in
black
one bit.
and white, and one is bits and the other is bytes. So, but go back to the grammar question, I think here is crucial because of the communications issues involved with information, and somehow or another, if you're going to communicate with other human beings, you have to use sentences in any sort of reasoned communication, in which that negative sign that you put in front of your equation is one of the possibilities of how the sentence is to be interpreted.
Of course. No, that's why I use the word semiotics now from Umberto Eco.
From Charles Sanders.
Right. So it has to have meaning, context. The context theory by Wilden, Anthony Wilden, also very much written in the 80s, is very much alive now through this research I'm doing, because he already foresaw what the criteria for functionality were in the 80s. But now we can confirm it by the new research by Melvin Hobson in England about the information, matter, and energy equivalence principle. Which is beautiful, because now we can say, hey, it's not just feedback, it is energy. Right?
Robin, Slava, you have new ideas after the 3rd presentation?
Sorry, Jason, I didn't catch that.
I mean, you did the presentation at the beginning. Now you hear the 2 other perspectives. So any new ideas being
I think I'm thinking about them. I don't think anybody said anything which was in any sense disagreeable to me. So I think it needs to be some thinking needs to be. I need to think about these two other perspectives. They seem very much in harmony with what I said. I think perhaps from a more theoretical point of view, I think that my experience has been at the very practical level, mostly where I've been trying to do things at a community level, a neighborhood level, and gaining experience from how that works and seeing how, well, I suppose, how central governments often interfere with that and make things a bit more difficult rather than making things easier for people to achieve things at that sort of local community level.
Right. I can see you all better now. Sorry. All right. Well, it's been a really an interesting ride to find these things. Many sleepless nights to think about and to improve the equations. Step by step. Because first there was like three symbols. Now I have only 5, but I don't want to have more because I want to make it understandable to the layman also. If I make it into mathematics, I'm not a mathematician. I wouldn't understand them. I'm just a logical person. And the logic.
That's the real difficulty. How do you translate these sort of ideas into things which the layman can understand? Because
right. So that's why I wrote the book, Robin.
Okay.
Because it's a thriller. It's a story.
Yeah.
So by storytelling, I believe we can do more. Right.
Yes.
Lisa, if you tell stories rather than academic, analysis, so we have to allow this synthesis, like Fritjof Capra. I studied with him
Yeah.
He says we have the systems view of life. If you read that book, it needs to be the whole mechanistic, reductionistic. Sciences are obsolete now. We have to open up to holistic ideas, systems thinking, system sciences.
Yeah, and that is very dear to my heart because I am a study group facilitator in that course.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm moving into like enlivening the alumni network, and I'm looking at, I have 2 colleagues and we're looking at really how to do that. And so we have this wonderful group of people who get this, and Fritjof's work now really is on these 4 principles in secular language. Fritjof has a gift, especially because he's writing in a language that isn't his first language, English. He also has gifts. His mother was a poet. He is a brilliant thinker, and he's able to crystallize the language. So, right, what I love that Larry brought us back to language in the end. And for me, yes, I use storytelling all the time and poetry because there's gaps. It's the original technology. There are gaps in the story, but we're able to cross those gaps because then it sparks our own perception and experience. So back to this participant observer. And the nature of humans is we do bump into each other, but we know, like, there's this intent not to harm.